Sega Genesis is 16 bits, 3DO is 32 bits, the Atari Jaguar is 64 bits. Which is more advanced? Clifford!
Can you repeat the question?
Jaguar! Jaguar! Jaguar!
Hello and welcome to Series 2 of Replay Retro, and congratulations to our Who Wants to Be a Handheld Gamer competition winner, whose name should be at the bottom of your screen now. On today's show, we're going to take a look at the final swan song of a former video game giant as we bid a fond farewell to Atari and the Jaguar. In the early 90s, Atari was a long way from the enormous success of the 2600, a system which had launched the company to fame and ushered in a new era of video game technology, leaving the many varieties of primitive Pong consoles in the dust. The 5200, with its wonky controllers and backwards hookup system, had been an utter failure, and the late release of the 7800 had seen this competent machine shot down by the mighty Nintendo Entertainment System. With the company now literally hemorrhaging money, its CEO, Sam Tramiel, decided to throw everything Atari had left into one last ambitious fightback. Atari would jump ahead of the 16-bit and 32-bit competition, straight into the 64-bit age. The Jaguar was based on a concept by two British engineers, Martin Brennan and John Matheson, who had developed their idea of a multiprocessor system several years earlier, but had never been able to put it into production until Atari provided the funding. The system was far more powerful than the popular Super Nintendo or Sega Mega Drive, but was also extremely complex, using a base model Motorola CPU backed up by two custom chips nicknamed Tom and Jerry, which each handled a number of important graphics and sound tasks to make the system much more versatile and extremely capable. With an aggressive ad campaign which encouraged potential buyers to do the math to see how much better a 64-bit system was, coupled with a low price of just $250, the system launched in America in 1993, before hitting the worldwide market in 1994 to an audience eager to experience this new technological breakthrough. With such anticipation for the new hardware, it seemed clear that the Jaguar would sell in huge numbers, but the system's complicated architecture was a nightmare for third-party developers who showed little interest in the console, and as a result, many games were just poorly optimized ports from the Amiga or Mega Drive, leaving the software library a pitiful mess. Another off-putting mess was to be found in the design of the system's control pads, which were awkward to hold and featured a 12-button keypad at the bottom, which, like several older systems, could take overlays for certain games, such as Doom, where it was used for weapon selection. While this was useful at times, it was mostly unused and just made the controller look outdated and cluttered. However, all was not entirely lost, as the system did have a few notable games, including the highly addictive Tempest 2000, the fantastic platforming adventure Rayman, and the mech game Iron Soldier. These went some way towards boosting sales of the system, but unfortunately for Atari, within a year the Sega Saturn and Sony PlayStation arrived to move gaming to the new compact disc format, and brought with them games like Sega Rally and Ridge Racer. These games made Jaguar's cartridge-based Atari Kart and Club Drive seem obsolete. Even the arrival of a CD-based add-on for the Jaguar didn't make a difference, nor did the promises of a modem and a virtual reality headset complete with motion tracking, neither of which were ever actually released. Near the end of the Jaguar's short existence, the fantastic Alien vs Predator was released. This atmospheric first-person shooter is a very desirable game today and gave some insight into what the system was capable of. But by this stage, the writing was already on the wall, and Atari's story ended, leaving the enormous potential of the Jaguar virtually untapped. While we'll probably never know what the system was really capable of, we can of course take a look at the hardware and a few of the games to get a better feel for it. Okay, so here we are with the Jaguar itself, and the first thing I just want to quickly draw your attention to is the box over here. How cool is this box? You've just got in big red letters, Jaguar, what it is, 64-bit, at a time when, you know, other systems boxes were saying 16-bit or, you know, 32-bit, so that's quite cool that it's got that on it there. And then these two eyes just staring at you out of the dark. I think that is absolutely brilliant. That is definitely some of the coolest box design I've seen. for a system, and that would definitely have got my attention back in the day. I would have wanted this just because of the box. Nothing else would have mattered. That box would have made me want this. Anyway, on to what's important here. The system itself. This is the Jaguar. It's an interesting design because it's very flat, really, and has a lot of odd features on it. You've got, you know, all these vents and stuff all over it. I'm not sure really whether they're just for aesthetic purposes or whether it really did need all that venting. You've got your cartridge slot on the top here, for plugging in your game cartridges. This indentation was for where the Jaguar CD would sit. At the front here you have your power button and the green LED to tell you that the power is on. Bit more detailing round at the sides. On the front of the system you have your player 1 and player 2 controller ports. The actual shape of the controller ports is, you know, very similar to ones we've seen on lots of systems before in the past, but it's more pins and the socket is female rather than male, which, you know, you'd see the reverse essentially on a Sega Mega Drive or something. Around the back you have the power supply socket. You also have the TV RF socket, and you also on the back here you have this weird chip looking, well, these two weird chip like ports. One of those is for the communication cable, so allowing you to play Doom multiplayer by linking two systems together. It would have also been used for the cat box, which was designed to have up to 32, I believe, Jaguars attached together, but I don't think that was ever released. If I'm wrong, someone please let me know. And this one here was for connecting an alternate AV lead, which was designed for either a monitor or for using a SCART socket type connection, I believe. On the underneath, nothing important really. You've got your serial numbers and all that kind of stuff. And that is about it for the hardware itself. The control pad, as you can see, as I said, has this 12 button keypad at the bottom here, which it just doesn't, when you're holding the controller, I can get to the D-pad, I can get to option and pause, I can get to CB and A, but I can't really, I have to stop and look at what I'm doing here. I can't just do it. The D-pad I like. It's a nice solid D-pad that, you know, it doesn't tilt too much in the wrong direction. It knows which direction you're pressing it in, and that is better than many D-pads produced today, including the Xbox 360's D-pad. You've then got your pause and option buttons, which again are just your simple basic rubber buttons, and then your three main action buttons. The B button has a slight indentation, slight like spot on it there, so you can feel the difference between it and the others, which means that you obviously have to look, you can look at the screen without ever having to look at the control, because you can work out where your finger is. Useful little thing, I suppose. Not really necessary on a 3-button pad, but it's useful to have. And you do get plenty of cord. Absolutely loads of cord here, so you can be nice and far away from the machine. And that obviously just plugs straight into the front of the system, like that. The games come in nice cardboard packages like this, but unlike Nintendo's cardboard packages, which we all know I don't like, these ones are really nice and solid. I like these. When you open them up, inside you'll find obviously your instruction manual and your warranty card. Bonus points for having a warranty card. This here is the keypad overlay. Don't know if you can see that very clearly, if the autofocus will get it, but you can see on this one it allows you to pick the different weapons. So you have punch, pistol, shotgun. You can see there's different weapons there. Map, and then I don't think these ones do anything. And you simply pop that into your control pad, like that. And you now have customised game controls there, which is quite cool. In a game like Doom, it is quite good to be able to instantly pick the weapon you want. But again, you do have to look. You're not just going to remember where those are. Well, I don't think you are anyway. And last, of course, you have the cartridge itself, which is a basic, really, shape, but has this nice chunky handle on the top for making it easy to pull out. So you would simply shove that in there, play your game, and then when you've finished, there's no eject button or anything like that. You just hold down the console, grab the big handle, and out it comes. It's a good idea. I don't think we necessarily need the handle, but you know, why not? And that is the Atari Jaguar. Let's just go take a look at some of the games. Okay, so the first game that we're going to take a look at here is Cybermorph, which is one of the first games. It's actually one that most Jaguar owners will have. It's basically a kind of space shooter, although you are close to the ground most of the time. Your craft changes shape depending on the speed you're going at. It's actually a pretty decent little game. It's very playable. The missions are quite different from each other. Sometimes you're collecting stuff like these yellow orbs I'm collecting, and other times you've got to destroy set targets. However, graphically, while the backgrounds are interesting, I don't think they really show off what the Jaguar could have done. Star Fox, or Star Wing, obviously, on the Super Nintendo, is a much better game, and that's a 16-bit game, so the improvement here isn't enough. Also, that woman's voice is very annoying.
Avoid the ground.
Especially when she gives you great advice like avoid the ground. Just go down and get these orbs here.
Well
That's what we're collecting.
Where did you learn to fly?
As you can see, she often insults you as well. She just, as with all the sounds in this game really, it's a bit repetitive is her voice. They could have given her a few more sound files, that would have been nice. The game technically is quite impressive. There's some great, you know, little bits of sprite stretching and what have you, and depth effects going on here. As a 3D, you know, as an early 3D game, it's brilliant. But it's just not as playable as Star Wing on the Super Nintendo, which also had better sound, better everything really. It's a pity because it's quite clear that this game could have been something.
Avoid the ground.
Yes, I am avoiding the ground.
Good work. Well done.
Yeah, it's definitely a game that anyone who has a Jaguar should make sure they have. It's enjoyable.
Select your opponent.
Next up then, we have Kasumi Ninja, which is the Jaguar's attempt at a Mortal Kombat type game. I love this character selection screen, I think it's brilliant. It's like some kind of museum. Very clever. The characters are all very different to each other. I'm about to take on a Scotsman. And if you ever wondered what Scotsmen keep under their kilt, we will find out in a moment. There you go, Scotsmen keep fireballs under their kilt. Yeah, exactly. That is the last thing I would want to keep under my kilt. As you can see, it is basically designed to be their version of Mortal Kombat for the Jaguar. It's slightly more polished looking than Mortal Kombat. I think the graphics are better than, say, the 16-bit Mega Drive Mortal Kombat. And I do like the life bars at the top. As you can see, the closer to death you are, the more blood is on the sword, and that blood actually drips down onto the battlefield during play, which is a cool kind of effect. I quite like it. The backgrounds are quite good in this game as well. There you go, Fireball Scotsman is down. Let's show you one more character. This is Thundra.
Round one.
Again, really nice background. I like it much better than any of the backgrounds I remember from Mortal Kombat. But unfortunately, as much as the game looks better than Mortal Kombat, and some of the aspects of it I suppose sound better as well, it's just not as playable as Mortal Kombat. The controls are very slow and unresponsive, and especially in two-player mode, you just find yourself feeling very sticky, if that helps. Probably doesn't. It's an interesting game, and there's some quite funny things like our Fireball Scotsman, but apart from that, it's one to miss, really. Unless, of course, you are a massive fan of beat-em-ups.
and want to own all of them.
Tundra, wind.
This is the big one. Alien versus Predator. This, in my opinion, is a reason in itself to own an Atari Jaguar. As with the new game, you get to pick whether you want to be a Marine, an Alien or a Predator. I actually like being a Marine, so I'm going to pick being a Marine. And you get a brief story about your character before the game begins. That heartbeat, especially when you're playing it with headphones, really pulses. And here we are.
What on earth got a hold of this guy?
Indeed. What on earth got a hold of this guy? I'll tell you, my friend, it's a xenomorph. They're going to get hold of you soon, because I'm no good at FPSs. You're probably going to die. It's probably going to hurt. Maybe you should just stay in your cell. Wait for rescue. Anywho, you're obviously exploring, and you'll come across aliens and predators. If you were a predator, you'd come across aliens and marines. If you are an alien, you would come across predators and marines. You probably didn't need to know that. The atmosphere in this game is, wow, it's just brilliant. It has kind of the same atmospherics as Dead Space, in that you can go for quite a while without seeing an enemy. And we've been playing a little while here, and we haven't seen an enemy yet. And that becomes scary in itself, because you're expecting constantly an enemy to appear. And then there you open a door, and there is one. And I've just left a pool of acid blood in front of a doorway. Not a good idea. The lack of music and the constant background sounds of the vessel you're on are just so atmospheric. If you play this with the lights off on a big screen, you get a really good feel of it. It's a brilliant game, and there are some moments where you do genuinely jump a little bit. Like there, where you didn't see an enemy coming, but it's there. You have to react very quickly, and unfortunately the shotgun's not the best weapon for it. Compared with something like Doom, where obviously you are surrounded by enemies all the time, here you're just not. You rarely see an enemy. And when you do, sometimes they can come at you in such massive force, like right now. This isn't going to end well. Run away! Yeah. It's definitely a game I would recommend. If you have a Jaguar, get this game. And if you don't have a Jaguar, get a Jaguar and get this game. It's a brilliant game. Alien vs Predator.
After the failure of the Jaguar, the Atari that we all knew and loved was dead. The name would be bought and sold several times over the years, before coming to rest with French publisher Infogrames, where it currently develops games such as the Test Drive series. Bizarrely, the moulds for the Jaguar were bought by the dental technology company Imaging Systems, and became the housing for their hot rod camera, with the game cartridges becoming memory expansion cards. This is a truly sad end for this revolutionary system. But of course, as with so many underrated systems which went before their time, there is an active homebrew community for the Jaguar, which still releases games, although many of these are only for the CD add-on system, as it's slightly easier to program for. Recently, the video cartridge promised by Atari was even brought to life by this homebrew community, and can be found on eBay if for some reason you want to play video CDs on your console. Well, I can't really think why. On next week's show, we'll be taking a look at the already mentioned Jaguar CD add-on in more detail, so be sure to come back and check that out. Until then, you can keep up with the latest news about the show by following ReplayRetro on Twitter. That's all from me, and I'll see you next week on Replay Retro.